Producer Dude says these people want to hear from us. They were asking questions, and you know, we can't always get back to you right away. Producer Dude's going one way, I'm going the other, fishing just about every day. So we're gonna do some videos here to answer your questions and encourage you guys, hopefully, to ask more questions, interact. Don't be crazy, don't be an asshole, as what I've heard the term is now with the kids. But Producer Dude, what do we have?
All right, so the first one is from Untitled Chapter. And he wants to know, are you using divers to fish deeper water, or lead core, or something else?
You know, you can use a lot of different things, everything from downriggers to the stuff that you mentioned. It really just depends on where you're at and what is deep. You know, everybody's definition of deep is different. A lot of times we're using some heavy bead chains, you know, 2, 3, 4 ounce, and it really depends on the speed that you're going. So if we need to go faster, whether it's to keep junk fish off or just cover water because the fish are really spread out big time, you know, something like a dipsy diver inside is great because you can go 2, 2.5, pushing 3 miles an hour. And then we may mix that up with some jet divers with whether it's some spoons or some harnesses, even some stick baits, and also some snap weighted crankbaits on board so that we're getting a bigger spread. So really it just depends on the speed factor. I like fishing spinners, I like fishing slow, but that doesn't always work because of not covering enough water or too many junk fish.
All right, and with that, Marco Pelton wants to know, are jets speed sensitive? He's interested in trying to find slower presentations that can get deep, 25 plus feet.
I don't know if I'd say that jets are speed sensitive. Think of them as kind of an overgrown crankbait. You know, if you're trying to go 1.2 miles an hour, I don't know that a jet diver is your thing, but I would say that they probably excel best at 1.5 miles an hour to 2.5 miles an hour. And you can get pretty deep, you know, like a True Trip, size 40, you know, they get, I think, pushing 40 feet, but also, you know, that may be a little too much for your planer boards depending on the type that you have. So there's a lot of things you can do. You know, snap weights are a great option. Dipsy divers are a great option. You know, in the central and eastern basins of Lake Erie, guys use wire line. So there are a lot of options. It just really comes down to speed and, you know, not getting too much fancy equipment.
So Mike McGill wants to know, what crankbait would be a good shad imitator?
Crankbait be a good shad imitator? There's a lot of good, you know, crankbaits out there. A newer one that, because I think he said Aristo wrap, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they don't make that one anymore. But a Northland rumble shad is something that's different but similar. That's kind of that same balsa type thing, and they're really well made. The Bagley's people make that for them. They got some really good colors, so that would be one I'd look at.
Scott Beatty wants to know, you talk about finding the fish and trolling crankbaits slowly. I'm wondering how much line you put out between the planer board and the crankbait.
So, you know, there's not, again, a lot of these questions are not simple 2 + 2 answers. You know, how much line do you put out? If you watch any of our stuff and you kind of really pay really close attention, you know, we're spreading things out. So if it's just me and Producer Dude right now, we can legally run 6 lines in the boat, and I'll have those probably all at 6 different leads because I want to, you know, cover shallow, deep. Even within a day, Producer Dude will probably even back me on this. We catch one high and one low, you know, minutes apart, and I'm kind of like, this doesn't make sense. So you don't want to kind of overcommit to anything. But most of the crankbaits that are around anymore, whether you look at their website or there's all kinds of different stuff on the internet, it'll tell you what the dive charts are for those based on approximately 0.014 diameter line. So spread them out, you know, look at those things. We may be fishing anywhere from, you know, 5 feet down to 25 feet down, and there's really not a good answer because Monday and Tuesday it's going to be a different answer.
Scott Boswell wants to know, what speed do you get with just a trolling motor? He has a Tarova 36 volt 112 on a Lund Pro 5.
It's a Pro V, dude.
I don't know.
Hey, thank you for your loyalty to Ranger boats, but it's Pro V. Like
okay.
V-hull.
He goes with the current as much as possible to help gain without using the kicker. What else can he do to help?
Batteries, man. You're only as good as your batteries. If you've got junk batteries or too small batteries, you know, that is only going to last so long. Just like a flashlight, you know what I mean? If you've got one that pulls a lot more power, it's the same thing. I'm running Dakota lithium batteries, 100 amp batteries. I got 3 of them in there to run my 36 volt system. And I'm not going to say I don't need a kicker now, but I don't use it even half as much as I used to because I can run at a higher setting. You'll find with your boat that when you get to a certain number on your remote on your Trova, maybe it's a 5 or a 6, that you can only get through 6 or 7 hours at that before your batteries are dead. Now with these Dakota Lithiums, I can run on max 10 all day long. Probably I can run about 3 days long on my batteries. So,
Steve Thiel wants to know, when you find fish at a certain depth, do you fish that depth or a certain distance above them?
good. That's a really good question.
That seems like one of your secret questions that you won't answer.
Yeah, you know, I'm going to, but if you do some one-on-one stuff with me, I'll give you a little bit better on this answer. But realistically, we just had a guy the other day, we were doing an educational trip, and we were driving over, and I'm showing how to mark fish at speed and kind of my philosophy on that. And these fish that we were marking were like, you know, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 feet down. And then once, you know, we set up and the boat was going across them, they were about 20, you know, 20 some feet down. And I firmly believe that when the boat's going across them at 30 miles an hour, they can't get out of the way. And that's where those fish are at. But those things kind of spook down and out. So I always like to spread my lines out, and you know, there's so many things. You got to realize that transducer cone's small. So one fish high that you mark is equivalent to about 5, you know, down, because it's such a smaller area, if that makes sense. So every one down here, you're just going to see a lot more of them than you are up here because that cone is so much smaller. So spread your lines out regardless. But yes, generally speaking, when you're fishing open water in particular, you're going to want to have those lures above those fish because they're much more apt to come up to them than they are to go down.
And last question, Barry Eisen wants to know, at what water temp do you start switching over to crawler harnesses? Is it also when the biters start making their way to cleaner water?
That's kind of a good question, but I'm not a water temperature guy for walleyes. You know, on certain places like Lake Michigan, when you get, you know, water that'll blow in and it'll change 20 degrees, you know, 10 definitely overnight, it's probably more of a concern. I've caught fish on crawler harnesses and water barely 40 degrees, like upper 30s, so I don't think it's a temperature thing. It probably just comes down to more, do they want the extra vibration? Are you fishing slower? You always want to fish as fast as you can and not change your results. And generally speaking, I'm going to fish crawlers a lot slower than I am a crankbait. So, you know, when fish get it like post-spawn, they get deeper, they're a little more lethargic. I really like, you know, spinners. But in the last couple of years on Erie, we've pulled a lot more crankbaits than we ever have. I'm fishing spinners less. But this year, just to show you that things always change, I'm probably pulled crawlers 10 times more than I have in the last 2 years. So don't think of it as either or, just throw one down, give them a little check out. Those fish want different things, man. Thanks for tuning in, watching the videos, watching all of our hijinks, if you will. Please play along, you know, comment. We're gonna reward you guys by answering your questions on video, so ask away. Producer dude, I mean, at some point there's probably gonna be a contest involved, some giveaways.
Nice.
Just saying.